Hello and welcome in, Chicago. Boy, it's a different kind of feeling around here when the Bears have the weekend off, isn't it? The grass looks a little greener. You can get the leaves picked up out of the yard. You're not cursing and swearing under your breath all weekend long. Welcome into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your Monday evening to talk some Chicago sports with me. Got a busy slate for you tonight. The Cubs were making moves. Theo Epstein decided to step down as president of baseball operations, and now Jed Hoyer is making his much-anticipated move into the big chair. The Bulls, Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley held their first draft class, bringing in Patrick Williams and Marko Simonovic. We'll talk some hoops tonight. Haven't gotten to do a whole lot of that since the show has started. And, of course, it's Packers Week. We cannot go without talking about the vaunted rivalry between the Bears and the Packers, even though recent history, both this season and in recent seasons, have told us that this probably won't be much fun. That's okay. We'll make the best out of it anyway. We'll have some fun tonight. So everybody sit down, buckle up, strap on in, and let's have some fun talking some Chicago sports here on Chi-Town Weekly. Let's go. Once again, this is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Thank you again so much for taking time out of either your Monday evening, if you're listening to this live on Spreaker, or if you're listening after the fact as a podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope we're able to have some fun tonight, learn a little bit, go through. There's quite a bit of news in the last week with Chicago sports. We'll go through some of that and kind of do some dissecting of some things. A little bit of homework to get out of the way first. If you are listening live on Spreaker, please feel free, log on in, create a username for yourself. There's no fee or charge or anything like that. And then log on into the chat so we can interact back and forth a little bit. Larry and Taryn are both in there. Hello, guys. Larry comments, wait, what? No soccer? No, sorry. No MLS soccer tonight. Sorry. Got enough for 1 hour, I hope. So, and then Taryn's thinking positively for us. The Packers got exposed yesterday by Old Man Rivers and the Colt Brigade. Yeah, the Packers aren't necessarily the class of the NFC. The class of the NFC just kind of changes on a week-to-week basis. You know, if you want to know who the top dog in the NFC is in any given week, then basically just wait a week and it'll change. But before we get into all that, and other homework too, before I forget, ways to interact with the show. If you are on Twitter, you can follow all of the shows on the network at IE Sports on Twitter. Also follow along with the station on Facebook. And also, if you are a fan of the station on Facebook but aren't aware of it, we actually recently created a group on Facebook. And I want to get the name of it right here, the Hidden Gems Sports Shows. If you are on Facebook and a fan of the show but aren't aware of that group, please join on in. It gives us just more of a chance to all interact together and have fun as sports fans. So check that out. Also, of course, on Twitter. The show is on Twitter at Chi-Town Weekly, IESR, and weekly is abbreviated WKLY. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Adam_Karnick. All right, so since the Bears were off, first up on the docket for tonight, let's start with the Cubs. Theo Epstein last week made the announcement, made the decision that he was going to forego the final year of his agreement with the Cubs, and he was going to step away from the organization. Not exactly a huge surprise. It's something that he has talked about at length for a couple years now, talking about how 10 years with one organization can lead to some stale thoughts and stale thinking, not only on the organization's part, but also on his part, and can lead to some complacency. So he wanted to avoid that. And then also he talked about how this offseason for the Cubs is such a huge, crucial, critical offseason because it's the final offseason where the Cubs have control on Anthony Rizzo, on Chris Bryant, on Wilson Contreras and Kyle Schwarber and Javier Baez. All their big pieces are coming out of control at the end of the 2021 season. And so there's big decisions to be made. Are they going to, they obviously you'd love to re-sign everybody, but the money just won't allow that. Even though Major League Baseball doesn't have a salary cap, there is the luxury tax, which the owners basically treat as a salary cap. And then the expectation in some circles is that the players and their agents are simply going to ask for more than the team feels they're going to be worth. So you can't keep everybody. You hate to lose talented players just to free agency without getting anything back in return. So this could finally be the offseason where you see some of the Cubs pieces get moved. And Epstein was very frank in his assessment that these are decisions that are going to have long-lasting effects for the organization for many years to come. And so they shouldn't be made by somebody who, at the end of the 2021 season, is just not going to be with the team. No matter how the season goes, he's not going to be there. He's made that clear. So he decided to step down a year early. What a legacy that Epstein leaves behind. In his 9 years of being the president of baseball operations with the Cubs made the playoffs 5 times. They won the division 3 times, including this most recent season. They made it to the National League Championship Series 3 times, winning it once, which led to the greatest, most spectacular, Taryn's probably going to disagree with me, but so be it, the greatest World Series ever. That 2016 World Series, Cubs fan or not, that was one that's going to go down for a long, long, long time. Cubs' final record with Epstein as team president, 705 wins, 651 losses. An outstanding job by Theo Epstein, and not only just the team, how successful the team was on the field, he changed the entire organization from upgrading the scouting department to making things, to having the processes be streamlined and uniform across the scouting department so that so that reports were looking the same from scouts as they'd come back, to just making sure that scouts had cell phones, that they had access to the right technology to help make their jobs easier, to getting the analytics department set up and working well with the Cubs, to handling the media, and a byproduct of that, handling the fan base, to being open and honest at all times with the media and with the fans. It didn't matter if he liked the question or not. He'd give you a straight, honest answer. Theo was a model, created a model with the Cubs of how an organization should be run. And he is passing the baton over to his top lieutenant, Jed Hoyer. But before I talk about Hoyer, thank you, Theo. You probably won't hear this. That's okay. Thank you. It was an amazing run. Theo Epstein made Wrigley Field not just a place to see the bleacher bums, not just a place to talk about curses and billy goats and black cats and remember whens, but you made it a place that was fun to watch baseball, and you made us all smarter about the game of baseball. So thank you, Theo, for 9 amazing years, the 9 greatest years in the history of the Chicago Cubs. So thank you for that. Theo has said he is planning on taking this coming season off, though there are already rumors and scuttlebutts out there of the Mets or the Phillies reaching out to him and wanting to have him be the president of baseball operations when the time comes. I have one request. I have one request of Theo Epstein, and I know it's a long shot, and I probably know what the answer is, but stay in Chicago, Theo. You have earned the right to do whatever you want to do, and if you want to stay in the sport of baseball, then by golly, stay in the sport of baseball. Obviously, you will do tremendous things. But what do you have left to prove to baseball, Theo? You ended the curse of the Bambino. The Red Sox, one of the biggest, greatest, most infamous baseball curses ever, the curse of the Bambino. You beat that twice over. Got the Red Sox 2 World Series championships. Then you came to the Cubs, the granddaddy of all sports curses, the Chicago Cubs. And you beat that curse. What more can you possibly do in the sport of baseball? You are a Hall of Fame executive in baseball. No one can possibly take that away from you. But you come to the Bears. You come to the Chicago Bears. Football has all this data just crying out for someone to make sense of it. NFL Next Gen Stats brought to you by AWS, or websites like Over the Cap or Pro Football Reference. All this data is there, but no one is all that good at really making sense of it. It's right there for the pickings. And Theo, if you could turn the Bears into a perennial Super Bowl contender, not only would you be the greatest baseball executive of all time, you would be quite possibly the greatest sports executive period of all time. Come to the Bears. I have nothing against Ryan Pace. I have nothing against Matt Nagy. We will talk about both of them later on in the show. And if at the very least Ryan Pace or George McCaskey or Virginia McCaskey, anyone in the McCaskey family, call Theo. At the very least, pick his brain, figure out who would you talk to? Who would you get into this building? We need help. How can we make this work? I know it's a long shot. I know it won't happen. Theo loves baseball, and he deserves every right to go back into baseball when he is ready. All right. Enough of that. Jed Hoyer had his introductory press conference today talking about things that he's going to do with the Cubs. It was interesting to note that he mentioned in there that they haven't had any talks with any of those 5 core guys that I mentioned already about extensions. They haven't talked with Bryant. They haven't talked with Rizzo or Contreras, etc. down the line. So that's kind of telling. You know, it feels like there's a move coming. Of course, the first name that pops up in trade talks is Chris Bryant. And of course, the Washington Nationals are interested, just like they were last year. Just like they were last year. They're interested in Chris Bryant. At this point, you've got to do something. You do not want to go into this season with all 5 of those guys as lame ducks. You've got to make your move. Either trade them or give them extensions. I know the Ricketts family spent a lot of this season, like many baseball owners are about to spend this offseason, crying about how they no longer have any money due to the pandemic and they didn't have fans in the ballpark. And I'm sure they lost tons of money. But long-term contracts almost always, especially with star players, almost always wind up benefiting the team because it resets the market, and then a few years in, you realize that player is now a bargain for you. So make your decision. Are you signing these guys or are you shipping them off? But make it happen. Don't go into this season with all 5 guys entering contract years. It's just going to be too much to go. Hoyer did also say that the team is going to be doing an external search for a new general manager since Hoyer, vacated that position. He was the general manager under Epstein. He's not going to be both. He's not going to be both the president and general manager. So they're going to look outside the organization for that. So we'll see here in the next coming weeks where that goes. Otherwise, it was a press conference. It was Jed Hoyer finally getting to take the chair that he has been practicing for many, many years. And hopefully best of luck to him as they get going on that. So the Cubs weren't the only organization making some moves last week. Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley got to have their first ever draft and their first ever free agent signing period with the Chicago Bulls. Let's go into those a little bit next here on Chi-Town Weekly on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Back in a few minutes.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey, what's up, sports fans? You're looking for a different type of sports talk show, something you haven't heard before. You got to check out the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday on 2 Live Stews Radio, 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Sports talk at its finest. Always have great guests, playing some good hip-hop. You don't want to miss it. Make sure to tune in to the BS3 Sports Show every other Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern.
Hey USRN fans, do you have a product or company you're trying to promote? Look no further. USRN is teaming up with small local businesses trying to establish themselves via online promotion. Let us know if you're interested. Email us at usrnradio@gmail.com to learn more.
Soccer Scoreboard Show with your host, Gabriel Montoya. This is the show for soccer, football fans, or whatever you call the beautiful game. Every week, I tackle the latest and greatest news from around the soccer world, from the English Premier League to the World Cup to MLS, Liga MX, and more. You can listen to the Soccer Scoreboard Show and our lineup of fantastic guests every Friday at noon here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Thank you once again for tuning in and listening. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Before we move off of that Cubs and Theo Epstein conversation and move on, I do want to catch up in the chat a little bit. Taryn and Larry were having a bit of fun in there. Taryn actually... He agrees that even though Taryn is a California guy and a Dodgers guy, he agrees the 2016 World Series was amazing. It was a special. I could do an hour-long show on that. We'll talk about that some other time about all of that. But then Larry was laughing a little bit when I brought up the idea of Theo Epstein to the Cubs. And yes, it is very far-fetched. It is not what he's going to do. It is not at all what he's going to do. And the Bears were just in the Super Bowl in 2007. The thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the one time in my life they make it there and they get absolutely destroyed. Yeah, we're the less that is said about Super Bowl 41 on the air, the better. We'll leave that alone. We'll leave that topic of conversation for another time. So then the Bulls, Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley got to have their first draft last night. And if you want to have some really good NBA draft recap, check out the Fast Break show. It's available on Spreaker. The guys did a really nice breakdown of the draft as a whole on Sunday night. Let's talk about the Bulls a little bit, though. 4th overall pick. All kinds of rumors swirling around. Were the Bulls looking at moving up? Were they looking at moving back? I joked on Twitter beforehand that they should trade back to 7 just for old time's sake. Then there was also talk, maybe they want to move up to the number 2 spot to try and grab LaMelo Ball. What are the Bulls going to do? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They wind up going with Patrick Williams, Florida State teenager. He is 19, but young for 19. Only turned 19 in August. So you want to talk about a young man stepping into the NBA. Patrick Williams, just barely 19 years old. 1 year at Florida State, was the 6th man on that team. Did not start at Florida State, but at the same time, don't let that dissuade you or discourage you. Florida State had a very strong program even before Williams got there. They were coming off of a Sweet 16 appearance and returned quite a bit of that roster, of that team. So Williams, as an incoming freshman, had to find his way. He had to learn how to fit in to a college basketball team where he no longer was big man on campus. And by all accounts, he was willing to do that. He was willing to put his ego aside. He was willing to put his own personal feelings aside and work for the betterment of the team. And there was a quote from his coach there at FSU that, okay, yes, he wasn't there on the court to start the game, but he was on the court to finish the game, and that's more important. So this is a young man that is going to have some growing pains, but is also going to be willing to be a teammate. I see Taryn chiming in. Yeah, I wasn't too into the NBA draft. I'll be honest. I knew that, hey, the Bulls are, I've got to cover them and talk about them and bring everybody up to speed, and it's a new chapter for them. So I wanted to be sure to do my due diligence and keep up on it as well. So I'm kind of there with you, Taryn, but there's some interesting stuff with this class. It wasn't the biggest obvious, oh man, here's the superstar that is obviously going to be the first pick, and then everybody else that doesn't get him, well, too bad. It's an interesting class. It's going to be interesting to see what all transpires from this. But the Bulls with Williams, there was a quote from Karnisovitz that I wrote down when I was kind of going through everything there with him. That when Karnisovitz was talking about Patrick Williams, he's positionless. Quote from AK, I don't even know what position he is. And that's kind of indicative of how the NBA is becoming. That it's no longer the days of, well, you got to have your best point guard, and you got to have your best shooting guard, you got to have your best forwards, you got to have your best wingers, you got to have your best center out there. Anymore in the NBA, it's I need the 5 best guys on this roster out on the floor at any given time, and that's how we're going to win championships. And that's Williams, it sounds like, is going to be able to bring some versatility to the roster and to the team as a whole. That you want to play him out on the wing, he can do that. He can shoot from outside. He can play wing for you. You want to put him down low as a big man, he can do that for you. He can post up. He can play that kind of game. You want to put him at the point guard position. He did that for 3 years in high school. He has retained those point guard abilities and mentalities of being the facilitator, being the general on the court. He's maintained that. And he is a defender. He is not afraid to line up one-on-one with whomever you ask him to go take on, and he'll give you a maximum effort. He will give you smart play on the defensive side of the ball too. He's not just somebody that is only interested when he's got the ball or when his team is on offense. He plays a complete full court game. So he's young. Yes, he's gonna take some time, but this is gonna be somebody to keep an eye on. The Bulls went so far as on their website they were making comparisons to Patrick Williams, comparing him to Scottie Pippen. That's a little far. That's a lot to put on any player. Never mind a barely 19-year-old kid who 2 years ago was playing high school ball in North Carolina. But that lets you know they see some things there, that they have high expectations for this kid. And part of where that comes from too was Williams had a very late growth spurt. He's 6'9", but he didn't hit that until well into high school. And that helped him develop part of his point guard game, because he was shorter. He didn't play the big man game until a little bit later into his high school career, and that may have benefited him. Other moves that they made in the draft: Marko Simonovic, 44th overall, big man that is going to stay overseas. Like many second-round picks in the NBA, certainly isn't going to have an immediate impact on the team. He's going to stay overseas for a little while. And then one player got brought in via free agency. The Bulls, like many of the Chicago sports organizations, and I'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute, are strapped for cash. They just don't have the cap. They didn't have the cap space to go out and make big splashes in free agency. So they brought in shooting guard Garrett Temple, 34 years old, most recently with Brooklyn. This is going to be his 10th NBA team, his 10th NBA season and his 10th NBA team. Doesn't necessarily bring a ton to the table as an offensive player, but is a very willing and able defensive player. And that's something where the Bulls were kind of lacking last year, where guys like Markkanen and Dunn in the backcourt were not necessarily lazy defenders, but you could tell it wasn't their favorite part of the game. I'll say it nicely and be a little generous there. So bringing in a guy like Temple can help solidify your team defense a little bit, and it just brings a little bit of veteran leadership into what is shaping up and looking like it's going to be a very young team overall. So having a little bit of veteran leadership and presence there could be very helpful overall with the team, with the presence for this team. So the cap space though is an interesting thing with Chicago sports in general. The Bulls were up against the cap this off season. The Blackhawks have been up against the cap seemingly for the last decade. The Bears are just so strapped for cash, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit in the next segment, talking about some different things for the Bears. There seems to be just problems with this team, with this city, and the way they spend money. that they are so struggling for the way they spend their cash and how they allocate their resources that it's problematic. Across all the teams, and the Cubs ran into it too the last few years with Theo Epstein. So that seems to be an endemic problem across the city. So the city needs to, I don't know, the general managers need to sit down and have a conference with the owners or what. But they gotta figure out how to not constantly be up against the cap so that they can have some money to spend around when they're ready to win. The Bulls, they're not in that position. The Bulls, it sounds like Karnisovas is understanding that this isn't the Bulls' year, that they kind of need to let's figure out what we've got with this team. Let's try to grow a little bit as a team, but then save some cash, make some moves, and then the following year we'll reevaluate and we'll relook at spending some money then. So, all in all, the draft for the Bulls got some mixed reviews. Williams is a little bit of a polarizing pick. I read some different people that felt that it was, drafting very much for a guy's ceiling, high risk, high reward kind of a move. I also heard some more guys locally that really liked the move, that thought it was a good smart pick overall. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on and keep an ear to. For a first draft though, in a class where there wasn't an obvious at the moment guy to go get, I think it was very smart that they did not move up for anybody. When in doubt, it's always better to move down than up in any draft. And so to stay put and take somebody that they had been targeting and keeping their eye on for a while was encouraging to see. So hopefully it is a sign of other good moves and good things to come for Karnisovas and this organization. All right, we're going to take one more break. And then after that, we are going to transition into some football. We will talk about both some college football from over the weekend and get ready for Bears-Packers. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Damn! Green team! Set! Hey!
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hi everybody, it's Calvin here from USRN, here to give you an important message. Since 2017, we have done our absolute best to provide you with nothing but the highest quality of sports calls in the greatest of quantity possible. Thanks to you, our station has grown more than we ever thought. That's why, with your help, we would like to grow even further. Just think, twice the amount of your favorite calls, 24 hours of coverage, talk shows, play-by-play, game-by-game analysis, and so much more. That's right, USRN2 is officially in development. But we can't do it alone. We have set up a GoFundMe page that you can access from our homepage on the left of your screen. We also are planning special giveaways and prizes to our highest donors. Our goal here at USRN is to bring you the best calls possible at no cost to you. In order to continue to do that, we need your help now. Please check out our GoFundMe page, and if you would like to know how you can help, you can email usrnradio@gmail.com. Without your support, we couldn't do what we do.
Lopan, they didn't even want you. Heck, they didn't even want me. But you know what? Right about now, they have no choice. Looking for the real sports talk? Talk that's for us, the people? Look no further. The Wait a Minute Show, a prime time sports comedy cocktail that tucks you in at night. Join me and Lopan Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 2livestewsradio.com and Saturday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Wait a Minute Show.com. Sounds like a plan to me. Ain't that right, Lopan?
Indeed.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So let's transition back into football here a little bit. And before we get into Bears-Packers, yes, we are going to talk some Bears-Packers this week. A huge, huge rivalry game. But before we get there, let's talk some college football for just a minute. Northwestern. The Northwestern Wildcats over the weekend absolutely took it to Wisconsin. 17-7 final score. Coach Pat Fitzgerald and the Wildcats are now 5-0 on the year in the Big Ten, first place in the Big Ten West, and they're starting to get some more national recognition too. The week leading up to the game, ESPN had kind of, let's just say, not been nice to Northwestern. Joey Galloway had some less than flattering things to say about Northwestern leading into their game against Wisconsin, and Coach Fitzgerald took that to heart, took that straight to his players and said, "Hey, these guys don't think you're anything special. Go out and show them you're something special," and they did. And some of the national writers are starting to take notice. In the AP poll that got released last night, Northwestern is now all the way up to number 11 in the polls. It is the highest the Wildcats have been ranked since 1996, the year after they made it to the Rose Bowl. Terrence chiming in, maybe Northwestern beating Wisconsin is a sign the Bears could beat the Packers. If only. If only. That score is basically what the score would look like if the Bears were to beat the Packers, though. I think 17 is about the max the Bears could put up in a game against the Packers. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute, Taryn. We will get there. But also Northwestern now 5-0, 3 games left on their schedule against Michigan State, Minnesota, and wrapping up the season at home against Illinois. None of those schools currently have winning records, so it is right there for Northwestern. The division is right there to be had for Northwestern to take the Big Ten West and have a date then with Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. Probably won't win the Big Ten title game against Ohio State, but it's just fantastic for Coach Fitzgerald and that program. It would mean the second time in 3 years that the Cats would be in the Big Ten title game. That is a huge sign of great things to come for that program and for Coach Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald's name has actually popped up several times with the Bears. There are a lot of fans and even some media that have suggested that Fitzgerald would be very interested in the Bears job were it to become open. I'm not there yet with Coach Nagy. I'm not there yet with the Bears. I can't fault anybody. I can't blame anybody that is there already, especially with Ryan Pace. That wants to see them go. This last month, especially for the Bears, has been so just miserable to watch and to keep up with. At the same time, it's right there for them. It is right there for them to be had. I talked a little bit in the opening about how the Packers losing to the Colts, shows you they're not the class of the NFC. There is no class in the NFC. You look at what happened, and it was fun this past weekend to kind of just watch some football I watched the Lions against the Panthers a little bit. I watched quite a bit of the Titans-Ravens game. That was a really enjoyable game to sit back and watch. Really makes you appreciate what the Bears did again, the job that the Bears defense did against Derrick Henry when you see what he went off against that Ravens defense and won that game in the end. You had the great game between the Packers and the Colts in the middle of the afternoon that went the Bears' way, went the Colts' way. And then the nightcap of that terrific Chiefs-Raiders game, which, by the way, if you want some good follow-up on that Chiefs-Raiders game from last night, you can get some excellent perspective both from the Raiders side of things with the Unfiltered Truth later tonight on IE Sports Radio. The two Phils do an awesome job with that show on both Facebook and on YouTube. So check that out tonight. That's at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern. And then if you want the Kansas City perspective, well, then tune in this same time tomorrow for the Kansas City Shuffle. Dave and Pezquire do just an awesome job talking Kansas City sports and sports in general. And I know they will be excited after that terrific comeback by Patrick Mahomes last night. So if you want to get some deeper dives into that game in particular, definitely check out both of those shows. But it was just nice to have a Sunday to just watch some games in general. But then you look at the way the games yesterday went. This week has laid out for the Bears basically as well as it could have. As much as you would have wanted it to go for the Bears, it did. Obviously, in the division, you had all three other teams in the division lose. The Packers had an opportunity to put a stranglehold on the NFC North, and they failed. They lost in overtime to the Colts. You can talk about the refs and all that kind of stuff there for a minute. The point is they had a lead in the second half, and they couldn't hold it. They couldn't make it stick, and it cost them. Now they're 7-3, and they're not even top dog in the conference anymore. They're behind the Saints, so they're right there within eyesight of the Bears. You had the Vikings on a 3-game winning streak, hosting the Cowboys. They couldn't get the job done. And then you had the Lions going into Carolina, knowing that a win gives them the same win total as the Bears, and that the Panthers would be without Christian McCaffrey and without Teddy Bridgewater, and they just Lionsed all over themselves, and they could not get out of their own way. Matthew Stafford got shut out for the first time in his career. They lost that game 20-0. Elsewhere in the conference, you had the Saints winning with Taysom Hill. With Taysom Hill, a guy that's not even necessarily a starting caliber quarterback, winning. That helps the Bears because it puts the Saints in front in the division. You want that for tie-breaking purposes. If you want the Rams if the Rams can beat the Buccaneers tonight, that just completes it for the Bears for this week, because then the Rams will get out of the wild card race and the Buccaneers will stay in it. The Bears own a tiebreaker on the Buccaneers if that comes into play. So you want to keep that in focus. All that being said, though, I don't know how the Bears do anything to win this week. Look at that. Look at the Vikings game. The perfect example. The Vikings are playing at home against the Cowboys with Andy Dalton at quarterback. They got a great game from Dalvin Cook. They got a good game from Kirk Cousins, and their defense lost it. This is the same defense that the Bears scored 7 points against last week. That defense then gave up 31 to the Cowboys. What how is this Bears offense going to function? How is it going to do anything? I've seen a lot of people this week want to have Mitch back in there. And Coach Nagy today at his press conference refused to name a starting quarterback. It sounds like health might be a concern for both Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky still, though Trubisky's coming along. We'll see. I don't care who you start. You want to start Trubisky again? Fine. Start Trubisky. I think that's a fine idea because Foles has been so bad the last few weeks. But we've seen 3 years of Trubisky. He's not the long-term answer. And I hate that he's not the long-term answer because I like the guy. He's a good kid. He's a great story if it works for the Bears, but he's not going to be the answer. The Bears aren't suddenly going to put up 35 points against the Packers simply because Mitch Trubisky is playing quarterback. That's not going to happen. We've seen that. We've seen that already this season. We've seen it last season, that Mitch doesn't elevate the team to a higher place than they already were. You still have an offensive line that's just beaten up and banged up into smithereens. And I don't think Nagy's going to go with Trubisky because that's an indictment on him in an offseason where he had his choice of any great quarterback you wanted. This was the offseason to get to name your veteran starting quarterback. Brady was available. Rivers was available. Cam Newton was available. You go a little low. Phillip Rivers was available. Andy Dalton was available. Nagy decided, nope, we need to trade for Nick Foles. That's the guy that I need to have quarterbacking my team when eventually I bench Mitch Trubisky. So Nagy's not going to just bench Foles for Trubisky. It's not happening. They're both still hurt. There is every possibility that we could see Tyler Bray starting this Sunday in Lambeau Field. I'm very scared. I'm very worried. I am having flashbacks to a couple years ago when Trestman went into Lambeau Field off the bye and on national television, and they gave up damn 60 points to Aaron Rodgers. I have this aching feeling that we are going to see a true embarrassment on Sunday night. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that in this bye week they found some things to work on and figure out how to move this ball, how to run this ball. If you run the football against the Packers, you can have success. Look at the games they've lost. Look at the games the Packers have lost. It's because the other team has run the football and stuck with it even when it didn't work right out of the gate. Nagy, run the ball. All right. That is it for this week. Some quick things before I let you go. Next week, I will not be on Monday night. I'm most likely going to be sometime on Tuesday. I'll let you know as things get shorn up. A little behind-the-scenes stuff on my end. Nothing serious. Coming up next, we've got Let's Whine About Sports with Matt P. Be sure to check that out. We will talk next week. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Talk to you later.